one particular person was doing was they were going to one of the sites, clocking in. It wasn't their home cost center, but they were clocking in there, then going shopping for 2 hours, and then turning up at the site that they're meant to work. And it's kind of weird because, I've got a pretty solid work ethic, and to actually think of someone doing that just like blows my mind. Like, how can you actually do that kind of action?
Welcome to the BundyPlus Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Steve, co-founder of BundyPlus, and this is our very first podcast, and super excited to get it underway. And today we're just going to go back to the basics. What is time and attendance? What is it used for? What changes they're going to be? What advances are going to be? And joining me today is Levon. He's one of the key members of BundyPlus and been around for a long time. How you going, Levon?
Good, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, not too shabby. Yourself?
Good to be finally getting this done and started.
Awesome.
So look, I thought maybe we could start with, I guess, just the origin or story of BundyPlus and ourselves. So can you tell us how BundyPlus started and I guess what was the gap that it was originally trying to fill?
Oh, okay. So how far do I go back? Probably 25 years ago, I was an independent contractor. I was a hardware designer, and Mike, the other co-founder, he was in time and attendance for another company. Mike met me through a sales consultant of a microprocessor. So Mike was looking for a hardware designer, and one of the sales guys that Mike knew said, go and talk to Steve. He's an industrial designer. He'll design you something, whatever you like. So Mike came to me and said, can you build this clock? I said, sure, I can build the clock. Then fast forward about maybe 2 years, I was basically doing design for Mike. So I was working full-time, but also my side hustle was design electronics, and that's where my company, Midnight Engineering, just got so busy that Mike and I ended up joining and becoming BundyPlus. So back then we were designing pretty basic time clocks for some big companies like Ford Australia, Nissan. There's a few other ones there. So from there, we were just a two-man team. We were actually working from a shed, which is pretty amazing to where we are now. And we've slowly expanded the team to a bit over a dozen. We did have like a central office just before COVID, and now we've sort of branched out everywhere, sort of internationally, our team's everywhere. So it's been an amazing sort of journey for BundyPlus and sort of what we do for small businesses across Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, cool. Now you touched on tech and building clocks and stuff like that. So, I guess for people newer to the concept, how would you explain what I guess BundyPlus does, or what time and attendance really is, and why it's so important? Yeah, cool.
But so Bundy clocks or time clocks in general, they record what actually happened. And that's sort of the key difference between what is the old paper, timesheet method where you sort of have to remember back, well, what time did I clock in yesterday, the day before. So the clocks actually record the most accurate way of when you clocked in and when you clocked out. So all of that is sort of then gathered together where payroll can then assess it using real data. So if you just think of a time clock, it's just basically records what you've done.
Yeah, cool. And if we were to look at one of those first clocks that you said you were building back then when you first met Mike to what we've got now, how would you kind of talk about that big growth in technology, or the gap in that?
Yeah, that
going from like the first iPhone to the current iPhone, something like that.
It literally is. Like, I remember the first ones that I designed, they were like 8-bit processors. They had hardly any RAM in them compared to the ones, or even back then, they were connected via, comms that no longer exist, like dial-up modems. This is pre-internet times. They were still doing the same functions of what they do today, versus today's modern devices where they're fully IoT, they connect to the internet, you can gather data from your workforce from anywhere in the world, touchscreen, face recognition, AI technology. Like, the difference is mind-blowing.
Yeah, and they look prettier and shinier, because I've seen some of those relics that are still floating around, whether it was back in the old office or, every now and then you get a photo from an old client. You're like, what's that?
What is that? Is that a Volvo, or is that, yeah.
Yeah, especially for me, because my brief intro is I've been with the company for about 9 years now. So it's been cool to kind of see the growth along the way. But some of these older models that you mentioned, they were even before my time. So it still blows me away sometimes that they're still around, or some people are still using them. And I guess it's a testament to your design. It's like if it's not broken, like you don't need to change it or fix it. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because I came from what was a very industrial background, so we had to design things to last, and being the designer of the original ones, they actually last. There's some that are still running for 20 years and they don't want to get rid of them because they work, which is crazy. And like, I love it. It is a bit of a slap on my own back, but business-wise, it's not good because they're still working. I'd much rather sell them new clocks.
Yeah.
but it is what it is. I mean, end of the day, I'm a really big advocate for just helping businesses. Like, it's not about, so much more revenue for us and stuff. Like, I'm a small business owner myself, so anything that I can do to help other small businesses, it's really satisfying for me.
Yeah. And so on that note, in terms of helping businesses, what have you found were the major problems either back then or even still now, or have those problems changed or evolved? What have you found?
Yeah, I don't think the problems have changed. I mean, at the end of the day, people are still trying to capture people's times. And there is that human aspect, and there is a very big difference between people's work ethics. Some people will clock religiously. Other ones will buddy badge. So buddy badging is when someone badges with someone else, or they'll put in fake clockings or fake timesheets. And so I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I think the problems are still somewhat the same, just in a different kind of context, or in relation to the newer tech, or to the different processes that businesses have. Yeah.
And like a lot of the stuff that is upstream from us as well, when we're still specialize in capturing those raw clockings, those real times for then other payroll systems that we interface into. They're the ones that do the evaluating of actually why did Fred clock in? He was not even here today. So it's kind of case, don't shoot the messenger. We're just telling you what happened.
Yeah. Well, in terms of that timeline that you're referring to, that 25, 22 year timeline from the first clocks. So, and since I've been around for about 8 to 9 years, what would you say are the kind of major turning points or innovations? Because I'll say, from my point of view, when I came across the cloud platform was just kind of an idea, or just kind of beginning to be birthed. And we were still manufacturing our own time clocks back then as well. Like you said, we're still back in the office then. So that newer tech coming in, and especially I would say that the cloud platform, from my point of view, and I think you'd share this, would be the one of the major innovations and turning points of the businesses, and what that's expanded out to, especially in terms of supporting, the ever-growing list of all the payroll systems. Would you share that same kind of sentiment?
100%. Going from desktop or on-prem to cloud is probably the biggest transformation. It's not just time intensive for like most business platforms, right?
Yeah.
And the really cool thing for me is we still support even the old clocks. So because we're still transforming and changing with technology, it also helps those businesses that have got old clocks as well. They've always got that upgrade migration. So cloud is by far the biggest transformation. Yeah.
And would that be like, it was, if you were to say there was ever a time where you had like we're onto something here, like would it have been maybe around that time?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And like you look at just the straight benefits of having on-prem services, having all these servers that are set up and all the infrastructure around to getting that running, and the support side, you're just trying to debug something that you have no insight into, versus cloud pretty well. It makes everything so much easier for everybody.
Yeah.
So there's so many more benefits why this is going to blow up.
Yeah, cool. Yep. Now, how about the team? Because there is just more than me and yourself. Like you said, it was started off with yourself and Mike. I think when I came along, I was replacing maybe the first support guy who would come along. So we were a team of 3. I remember being the one-man help desk in the old office, and then obviously since expanding out, getting Dylan on board, Chris, and then the rest of the team from overseas. So how has the team culture shaped the direction of the company? From my point of view, I mean, even especially back in the office days, it was always kind of cool, like especially for me coming from a much larger team, super big corporate job, super micromanaged, to like a team of, back then it was just the three of us, but even, before we moved out of the office, it was, Dylan and Chris, maybe the five of us, and having that interaction and just that kind of casual aspect, or, not having to wear a uniform and, all the chats by the coffee machine and stuff like that. I think that's, played a big role in the overall culture of the team and the cohesiveness and chemistry and all that kind of stuff. So, how would you say that the team and the culture of BundyPlus has kind of shaped where we've got to now and where we plan to go?
Yeah, it's probably it is something that I am actually quite passionate about as well, because we spend so much more time. We spend more time with our team members than we do our own partners, like generally. So you want to be able to work with people that, you get along with, you all got the same sort of goals to go forward. It's probably been a little bit slower than I would have hoped. But then again, like, change is always a little bit hard. You can't grow too fast. I think we're growing at a great pace. And we recently put on another support person, which is awesome. But there's always spots where you think, we could do with another person there, we could do with another person there. And that just comes with the natural growth that BundyPlus is doing anyway. We're growing at a fairly substantial rate. But yeah, I mean, as you know yourself, we can't get rid of you. You've been here and gone. You keep on coming back. So we must be good to work for.
Very much so. Yeah, I tell people that all the time, I've tried to quit, but it just keeps coming back. All right. What about our customers and who we support and provide the solutions to? Would you say we have a typical customer, and what type of value are they seeing?
I would say we do. If you look at the analytics, our sort of sweet spot is the 50 and less type businesses. So there are small businesses like ourselves. They face the same challenges. And sort of part of that BundyPlus sort of mantra is to keep it simple. If it's simple, then you can train it. People can learn it easier. It just does the job that it is. When you get into those bigger sort of ERP systems, you get a little bit trickier as far as support goes, as far as your infrastructure goes. So yeah, I do like the synergy between the small businesses, because I can communicate with them if they've got any problems, or, I can reach out to them and say, hey, how's BundyPlus going for you? For the bigger clients, we don't so much. So I kind of like that sort of small size where we can, work well together. Okay.
Any questions for me? Or I guess for that same question, I mean, you're pretty much spot on. A lot of those like mom and pop businesses, less than 50, I think is the official metric, something around about that in terms of employee size. And then, Australia and New Zealand wide, a couple of other countries in Asia Pacific, I think, with a handful of clients. Pretty widespread, especially for a small team of 10 or a dozen that, all based in Melbourne or a small team overseas as well. So,
Levon, you're in sales, so I'm really curious to know what some of the clients come to us are actually asking for. What are their pain points? Why are they coming to Bundy?
Yeah, look, I'd say number one is just looking for an improved and more efficient system. Not sure if we're saying this on or off camera, but a lot of you'd be surprised how many people are still using age-old technologies or just manual processes where it's a super long process. It's open for so much human error. So they're coming to us for essentially to implement a new system that's going to improve their efficiency, have a more kind of robust and trustworthy and accurate system, most of all. So, I mean, you deal with all sorts. You deal with some people who already have a time and attendance system and they just want to upgrade, or they're back at the market looking for a different solution, whether it's to utilize our mobile app, or the cloud platform, or some of the newer technologies in face clocks that we have.
But why are they so sort of hesitant to that change? Is it the fear of change, or they're just unsure of the technology, how it works?
Yeah, a big part of that is that just especially if they're coming from a manual process, they've never had a time clock. So, what does that change in culture really mean? It's funny, like you'll talk to clients about, setting up all these rules and parameters and things like that. And a big part of it is just kind of reassuring them like, hey, like, you're setting up a new system. There is going to be some change. You are going to have to, adjust your processes and get your team and staff used to this new process. But, once you're kind of up and running and you've built momentum, that's when you start to reap the rewards or the benefits of the system. So yeah, there not always, but can be a lot of hesitancy in terms of changing their systems. But usually once they kind of come around, they realize that, oh wow, like it almost becomes more obvious how inefficient their old systems were once they've made the move.
So just touching on that, so now you've got buy-in by the payroll team. How is it translated into the staff that are actually on the factory floor? How are they accepting the technology? Are they sort of scared of, oh my God, they're tracking my face?
Yeah, so there is some pushback that we get with, Fred, that's a good point. The facial recognition, people think that their images are, out and, stored somewhere or their personal data is being compromised, or whether it's the mobile app, the geolocation, the geotagging, I don't want to be tracked in real time, which of course it's not doing that. So, we do have to, get people or reassure people of these things as well. We do obviously have, alternatives or workarounds, whether it's, prox cards, fob tags, obviously not as secure as facial rec. I mean, that is kind of the whole point of facial rec in the first place, is because, it can't really be fudged. You have to be there. The system knows it's you. So, sometimes those questions could just be from people who are, maybe some troubled workers who are masquerading and saying, oh, I don't want my images to be stored, or I don't want my location to be tracked. But, at the end of the day, it's there so they can, have an accurate system.
Yeah. And just touching on the facial recognition and from the dev side, we take people's privacy and images very seriously, and like our ISO 27001 process that we're going through at the moment is, it's something you have to take seriously, right? So like I understand from the employee's point of view, but I'm just assuring everyone we do our very, very best to make sure that all your data is private.
Yeah. Compliance being a huge one for sure.
So okay, let's role play. If there's a company of 50 and 10 say, no, I don't want my face recognised, as a BundyPlus solution, what do you say to them then?
One, we mentioned the alternatives, like I just mentioned, in terms of the prox cards and the fob tags. Two is just letting them know of the compliance and just, making sure that they're aware that, your data is only stored locally on the device. It's protected by, we use the Amazon Web Servers. And then I guess failing all that, then it would just have to be a matter of a discussion, an internal discussion with the client and their employees, about what's happened and what's kind of expected.
Right. So as far as the multi-site scenarios, is that something that is a real big winner for our clients? Do they sort of see the benefits of, we touched on earlier from the desktop to the cloud solution and how the interconnectivity is so easy now. Is that something that people are looking for? I mean, just the way that the rest of the world has migrated to cloud-hosted solution, cloud-based solutions. I think a lot of people prefer that now, and not having to rely on the problems that come with, things needing to run locally on your computers and servers. And so offloading that to have a completely cloud-hosted solution, many people are gravitating towards that. What was the first part of the question? Sorry. The multi-site.
Yeah, and so obviously having the multi-sites and then not having to worry about, because, you'll have multi-sites where people have their own networks or VPN, so the older systems can still work that way. But, giving them the freedom to expand that, all they need is internet access and connectivity as opposed to like a VPN or a local network. Having that feature has definitely allowed us to appeal to, a larger part of the market.
Mm-hmm. And with face recognition versus fingerprint recognition, is there any difference sort of take up on that, or is there any different objections to having either or both?
We found, because we do have some devices that do, the biometrics, as the fingerprint biometrics. And that used to be more of our bread and butter when we were creating our own time clocks. I'd say people are still preferencing the facial rec just because, again, with that and some of the other questions to your previous point, about, what happens if, someone's wearing a hat or glasses, or one day they're, got a big scruffy beard and the next day they're clean shaven. We definitely are finding a lot less issues with, verifying people with facial rec as opposed to fingerprint, because fingerprints, your fingers can get greasy, cuts on the finger, especially some of the industries that we service, where they're working in factories and things like that. So we do have more issues with fingerprint than facial rec, that's for sure.
So Levon, you were in support for a fair time, so you've seen a lot of the people at the coalface. What's probably the most surprising thing you've seen with people either faking or like how they're clocking?
Well, a lot of buddy punching for one, especially, pre-facial recognition days. So whether that was sharing cards, sharing PID numbers, things like that, sabotaging the clock itself, whether it's like scratching up the sensor on the biometric template. So, they have got a valid excuse that, hey, the clock's not working, but, I actually clocked out at this time. So you do get some funny ones. Those are a couple that I can name off the top. How about yourself? What have you found any weird scenarios in terms of how people have been using our systems or trying to fudge the system?
There's probably two that stand out. One before cloud, and it was a small client. They had maybe 6 staff. So there was your traditional payroll person, and then there was some people in the production area. So the payroll person would go home at 3:00, but then when they arrived the next morning, there would be all these messages on the phone saying, "Oh, I tried to pick up my order, but there was no one there." Yet the production person should have been there until 5. And this happens, periodically, and it just seems strange. It's like, hang on, you've clocked out at 5:05, yet you didn't answer the call. So then they looked in a bit closer, looked at the video footage, and they found that when the payroll person went home, the production person went into the office, entered their timesheet on her computer, and then left. So it was a classic, time theft. So that was way back when. The other instances I've seen is quite a large government department where we had multiple clocks deployed throughout hundreds of sites throughout Victoria. And what one particular person was doing was they were going to one of the sites, clocking in. It wasn't their home cost centre, but they were clocking in there, then going shopping for 2 hours, and then turning up at the site that they're meant to work. So that was another one. It's like, whoa. And it's kind of weird because, I've got a pretty solid work ethic, and to actually think of someone doing that just like blows my mind. Like, how can you actually do that kind of action? And that's where, time and attendance, it isn't necessarily recording exactly what you did because there is that human sort of bit, but we can only do the best we can, right?
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So if you could give one piece of advice to a business that's starting out with time and attendance or implementing a new time and attendance system, what would it be? Other than sign with BundyPlus?
Well, that's obvious. It would be, there's probably 2, I can think of 2. Making sure you have all the stakeholders on board. So it's the financial side, it's the payroll side, and more importantly, it's the employee side. So let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it, because the immediate reaction from an employee is, oh, they don't trust me, which is, 99.9% not the case. It's just the business trying to improve their efficiencies. The other one would be is to set up really good clocking habits. So depending on how you're doing it, like I use the mobile app and I would clock maybe 20 times a day, and it's a habit. It's just record. If you're not doing that, then your data's going to be out of whack. So yeah, just teaching those really good habits. Just clock in. We're not tracking you. Keep everyone fully informed. Or if they're worried about their privacy, let them know this is all compliant. If you've got any questions, then come to us. So yeah, just keeping everyone on board, and then everyone stays happy.
Yeah, I agree. And just to kind of add on to that in terms of the making sure everyone's on board. That's a big one. And that's why from a sales point of view, that whole, review and approval process can take some time, because it needs to get, obviously authorized by the people above, but just also make sure that the teams is across everything. And then the habits one as well, specifically, because what I was saying before about, you're implementing a new system, there needs to be a change in culture. Sometimes we get questions, what if someone forgets to clock out, or, what if they come in and they clock in like an hour early, even though there are still ways to mitigate that, like with, setting up your ruling. There really isn't much you can do with someone forgetting to clock out. But that's my point, is that, you need to get people used to that. Whether it's you take the strict approach and it's like, clock, you don't get paid, I'm sure they'll come around pretty quickly if you implement that. But yeah, essentially getting your team cultured and getting them used to the new system and then habits, like you said.
Mm-hmm. So thanks, Levon, for joining us. Any final thoughts?
No, I think it was a good chat. I think it was good to, let people know, what we're about and, kind of putting us on the map a bit. And yeah, episode 1. So more to come.
Yep, cool. All right. So once again, thanks, Levon, for joining us. Been an amazing first episode, and we shall see everyone next month. And thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
If you found today's episode helpful, please make sure to subscribe to the BundyPlus podcast. You'll get expert insights into how to manage your workforce smarter, stay compliant, and grow your business with confidence. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. Also, if you like what you heard, please leave us a quick review, and hopefully we can add some value to other small businesses like yourself. See you next time.
One tap, one task, no time